In December of 1911, a man wrote a check for $300, a deposit on a first-class stateroom aboard the maiden voyage of the most famous ship ever built. Then business called him home, and he sailed on an earlier boat. 4 days later, the Titanic went down without him. The man's name was Milton Hershey, and this is not a story about a ship. It is about what he did with the life he got back. He gave it away, all of it, to orphans. And what they did with it afterward is the strangest fortune we have ever followed. Welcome to Fortune and Ruin, where we watch the world's greatest fortunes rise and burn. Usually the fire is lit by the heirs, but our chocolate king had no children. So when his empire finally caught, the flame came from somewhere no one expected, the very charity built to do good. He was born in 1857 to a plain Mennonite family in the Pennsylvania farmland. His mother wore the bonnet and the plain dress her whole life. His father chased schemes and caught none. Milton left school in the 4th grade. He apprenticed to a candy maker, and then he went to work, failing. A shop in Philadelphia, gone in 6 years. A run at New York, closed. He went broke, borrowed from relatives, and went broke again. 3 cities, 3 failures. He was nearly 30, with nothing to show but sugar-burned hands. And then, caramels, a recipe with fresh milk that kept them soft. He called them Crystal A, and for the first time in his life, Milton Hershey did not fail. In 1900, he sold the caramel business for $1 million. Cash. He was rich. He should have stopped. Instead, he kept one thing the buyers did not want: his chocolate machinery, because he had decided that caramel was a fad and that the real future was a candy almost no one in America had learned to make well. He bet the entire $1 million on it. He built his factory in the middle of a cornfield. No city, no workforce, nothing. So he built those too. A whole town rose around the chocolate. Houses with electricity and indoor plumbing, when that was a luxury. A trolley line, a bank, a department store, a park, a zoo stocked with his own animals. He named the streets Chocolate and Cocoa. He named the town after himself. It was a utopia. It was also a company town, and Milton Hershey owned nearly all of it. The textbook benevolent dictator. Everything his workers earned they could spend right back into his hand. He smoked flavored cigars, distrusted lawyers, and kept his own counsel. Ask his religion, and he would say 2 words: the golden rule. Remember that. He was about to test it, with more money than a man could spend in 10 lifetimes, and no one to leave it to. Her name was Catherine Sweeney, Kitty. He met her over a candy counter in Jamestown, New York. A quick, bright, Irish Catholic girl. Everything the plain Mennonite bachelor was not. They married in 1898. They wanted children, and none came. And then Kitty began to weaken, a slow, cruel illness that stole the control of her own body. He took her to every healing spring and specialist on 2 continents. Nothing held it back. Some whispered a cause. None ever proved it. What is certain is that he loved her and that he was losing her. In March of 1915, in a Philadelphia hotel, he stepped out to fetch her a glass of champagne. When he came back, Kitty was gone. He was 57, the richest candy maker in America, and completely alone. Years before, it had been Kitty's idea. A home and a school for orphan boys. Poor, parentless, the kind of boys nobody bet on. After she died, Milton Hershey did something no one saw coming. Years before, It had been Kitty's idea, a home and a school for orphan boys, poor, parentless, the kind of boys nobody bet on. After she died, Milton Hershey did something no one saw coming. In 1918, he quietly transferred essentially everything he owned, all his stock in the chocolate company, some $60 million, into a trust for that school. For scale, Coca-Cola sold that same year for less than half as much. And he told no one, not the papers, not his workers, nobody, for 5 years. He said if the public knew, they would feel they were buying chocolate to fund orphans, and he would not have his customers used that way. He made orphans his heirs. It is one of the largest secret gifts in the history of American wealth. And this, right here, is where the story should end. A good man, a good deed, the credits roll. It doesn't. Because the charity had conditions. To enroll a boy, his widowed mother often had to sign him over on an indenture. And the boys did not just study, they worked, milking the herds on the dozens of dairy farms that fed the chocolate empire. Free labor, wearing the mask of rescue. Because the charity had conditions. To enroll a boy, his widowed mother often had to sign him over on indenture. The boys worked milking the herds on the dozens of dairy farms that fed the chocolate empire. Free labor, wearing the mask of rescue. And read the deed in his own hand, and you find the ugliness of his age set in stone. The school was for healthy, white, orphan boys. No black children until 1968. No girls until 1976. The great philanthropist drew the circle of his mercy, and then he drew a line around it. And then there was the day the utopia bled. April 1937. His own workers, wanting a union, sat down inside the chocolate factory and stopped it cold. Around town, dairy farmers watched 800,000 pounds of milk a day spoil, with nowhere to go. On the 7th day, a mob of 3,000 loyal workers and furious farmers stormed the plant and drove the strikers out by hand, with fists, with clubs, with ice picks. Men were beaten bloody on the floor of the sweetest town in America. It ran on the front pages of The Nation, the perfect town, exposed as a place that would break heads to keep the machines running. Milton Hershey was 79. They say the violence, his people turning on each other, broke something in him. The union came anyway, the next year. The dream of the perfect town never fully healed. And there was a second kingdom. In Cuba, he bought 60,000 acres of sugar to feed the chocolate, and built a second company town on the backs of migrant island laborers, brought in cheap, under Cuban wages. After the revolution, they scrubbed his name off the map. He died in 1945. He could have had a marble mausoleum. He chose a plain stone that says one word, Hershey, and he lay down beside Kitty. There is no secret society in this story, no seance, no curse. We looked. The tycoon who talked to the Golden Rule never talked to the dead. The only ghost in Hershey is the one the hotel staff still swear to. Every so often at dawn, in an empty room on the 3rd floor, they catch it. The sweet, fruity smell of a flavored cigar. His brand. As if the old man just stepped out, the way he did for Kitty's champagne. And any minute now, he will be back to see what they have done with his money. Here is what they did with it. That $60 million gift for orphan boys grew and grew into one of the largest charitable fortunes on earth. Nearly $20 billion. And because it still holds the controlling stock, that charity for poor children secretly commands a candy company worth tens of billions, about 80% of the votes. A school for the parentless became the super voting master of a corporation, and around that much money, the wrong kind of people gather. And it still is the master. As recently as 2024, when one of the largest food companies on earth came calling with an offer worth tens of billions of dollars, the Orphans Trust, still holding about 80% of the vote, simply said no. A charity for poor children, quietly deciding the fate of a corporate empire. In 2002, the trustees decided to cash out, to sell control of Hershey itself for $12.5 billion. The town revolted. Yard signs went up. A judge blocked the sale, and the board that tried it was thrown out. The people of Hershey had to stop the Orphans Trust from selling the Orphans Company out from under them. In fairness, the trustees had an argument. A wise steward does not gamble a children's fortune on a single stock. Selling and spreading the risk was by the book the careful thing to do. The town did not care about the book, and that tension between what is prudent and what is right would shadow this trust for the next 20 years. Then came the self-dealing. The charity bought a failing golf course, valued near $4.5 million, for $12 million, and the insiders who had invested in it walked away with the profit. Board pay tripled. 2 state attorneys general came investigating, and the board spent $3.5 million of the orphans' money investigating itself. The grandson of the man who invented the Reese's peanut butter cup sat on that board, and even he sued it, claiming no one had done the math before spending those millions. He dropped the case when his eyesight began to fail. The investigations dragged on for a decade, and each time the finding was technically the same. No crime, just a children's charity that kept behaving like a private club. The man who chaired the trust for years had once been the state's own attorney general, the very officer whose job it was to police charities like this one now ran the club. And when investigators finally pried the board open, the last straw was almost too perfect. One chairman had quietly seen to it that his own son was hired by the trust's own investment firm. It took a state crackdown in 2016 to force term limits and finally purge the old guard. By then, one of the trust's own top executives had been caught in an FBI sting, pocketing $13,000 meant to grease a lobbying deal. They fired him, but the pattern was the point. And the secrecy outlived every scandal. As late as 2021, a sitting board chairman had to sue his own charity just to see its financial records. He claimed that millions of dollars could not be accounted for. Even the people running it, it seemed, could not always say where the orphans' money had gone. And through all of it, the deepest scandal was the quietest one. The school sits on nearly $20 billion. It spends barely 1.5% of it a year on about 2,000 children. A finance professor called that ludicrous. A law professor called it indefensibly low. The orphan's fortune was not being stolen so much as hoarded. His trust built a medical school and a major hospital. It is now opening a $350 million chain of free preschools. Finally, critics would say, spending some of the mountain. In the ledger of good done, Milton Hershey is deep in the black. In 2011, the charity Milton Hershey built to shelter the vulnerable turned away a 13-year-old boy who had done nothing wrong. Because he was HIV positive, the federal government sued. The school apologized and paid the boy $700,000. The home for children that nobody wanted had found a child it did not want. A few years later, a gay student said his house parents sat him down and made him watch a video that promised he could be cured of who he was. A court dismissed his lawsuit on a technicality, but the school never denied the video was shown. And the HIV boy was not alone. In 2010, the school quietly paid millions to settle the claims of 16 children who said they had been abused in its care. Years later, an employee was caught hiding a camera where boys undressed. Each time, the sanctuary changed its policies and said that it was sorry. A home built to be a refuge kept having to apologize for what happened inside it. So here is Milton Hershey's whole fortune, laid out. A fourth-grade dropout who failed in 3 cities and then built a kingdom. A grieving man who gave it all to children who had no one. A charity that grew so rich it forgot, more than once, what it was for. And a candy at the far dark end of it, still touched by the labor of children. Every fortune has an ending. His refused to end. It just kept spending and staining and saving lives all at once. And yet, strip away the headlines, and the thing at the center still works. Today, the Milton Hershey School raises more than 2,000 children for free. Home, food, doctors, dentists, and education for kids whose families earn, on average, $22,000 a year. Most of them go on to college. That is real, and it happens every single day because a lonely widower signed a piece of paper in 1918. And it has been doing it for 100 years. Tens of thousands of children who arrived with nothing and left with a diploma, a trade, a chance. Whatever else this place became, that number is real, and it is enormous. And the reach did not stop at the school. In 1963, a single $50 million gift from his trust built a medical school and a hospital out of Pennsylvania farmland. Today, it is one of the largest academic medical centers in the state, where thousands of doctors are trained and hundreds of thousands of patients are treated. A man who left school in the 4th grade built a place that teaches physicians. And after decades of being told it hoarded, the trust has finally begun to spend. A $350 million network of free preschools, named for Kitty, is opening its doors right now, one town at a time. Add it all together, a thriving town of thousands, 20,000 jobs, a theme park that millions visit every summer, a hospital, a century of rescued children. The reach of the good this one grieving man set in motion is almost impossible to measure. But you ask the honest question, and a reach this long runs in both directions, because the same fortune that saves children in Pennsylvania is still tied, at its far end, to the labor of children an ocean away. The sweetness has a stain that has not healed. A United States government-funded study found roughly 1.5 million children laboring in the West African cocoa fields that feed the industry. Hershey, by its own admission, can trace less than half of its cocoa to a farm. They are boys, mostly, swinging machetes taller than they are, hauling sacks through the heat in the fields that grow the beans that become the candy on the shelf. Some were trafficked across borders. Some will never see a classroom like the one Milton Hershey built for boys, exactly like them. Former child laborers sued Hershey and the others. The Supreme Court and the appeals courts threw the case out. Not because the abuse was not real, but because the men could not prove exactly whose beans they had bled for. The courthouse door closed. The problem did not. The industry promised to end the worst of it by 2005, then 2010, then 2020. Every deadline came, and every deadline passed, and the children are still there. Even the candy itself came under suspicion when testing found lead and cadmium in some of the chocolate. The stain, it turns out, is not only historical. So here is the whole ledger of Milton Hershey, laid on one table, On one side, a fourth-grade dropout who failed in 3 cities, buried the wife he loved, and turned his grief into a home for children who had no one. A school, a hospital, a town, 100 years of second chances. On the other side, a fortune that grew so vast it forgot what it was for, that hoarded billions while it doled out pennies, that turned away a sick child and looked away from a continent of them, that drew a line in his own hand around who deserved his mercy. The good is real, the harm is real, and they were both born from the same man and the same money. So we will not tell you what to think. We will only ask what he might have asked himself, alone in that corridor, watching the smoke. Is it enough? Does the good he did answer for the rest? Or does a fortune this large owe more than it has ever paid? That answer we leave in your hands. If a fortune this strange and this heavy is worth an hour of your week, then subscribe, because there is always another one, burning.